guys, I record all the presentations I do for you guys, or for anyone. That's for the only reason is that we put it on YouTube afterwards and we send it out to all of you guys later. Okay? One of the things that I found when I was a swimmer coming to camps and stuff like that, you'd come, you'd do a presentation, you'd leave, you'd forget everything. This way you'll have access to the slides and you'll have access to the video for later. Today I've been asked to do a presentation for you guys, mainly around strength and conditioning and the benefits of it, you know, what you can do, what you can't do, you know, what's good, what's not good. It was very broad because I believe there's a lot of you guys that may be doing some S&C work and a lot of you guys that may not be. Is that right? Raise your hand if you do some S&C or you're doing some strength training. Yeah, kind of. What's that? Like that. What does that mean? Should be, but hasn't done it yet. All right, cool. Who has never done any form of strength training? Yeah, cool. All good. Not a problem. So that's good to see that a lot of you guys are getting onto it. Okay, so that's why this presentation is realistically about how S&C is no longer optional for swimmers. Okay, it used to be a big thing when I was swimming, and it has been something that I've come up against a few times, that, you know, strength training can be an optional add-on to your training. Realistically, you guys don't have that option anymore. I fully believe that S&C is, you know, not quite as important as your swimming component, but if you're looking to swim and do well at swimming, it is definitely something that you need to make sure that you've got in your training program. Okay? Yes, I may be a little bit biased as I own a gym that specialises in strength and conditioning for swimmers, but it's something that wasn't really available when I was around, and then nowadays it's very prevalent. It needs to be done. It needs to be done really well. So today I'm going to have a pretty broad conversation with you guys about, you know, myself, what S&C is for this place here, some of the systems that we use, okay, and then we'll go into a practical bit at the end. Okay? Sound good? Wicked. All right, next slide for me. Now guys, for those who don't know, I am a kid from Bunbury. If you didn't know that, I'm from Bunbury, don't judge me, it's okay. All right, I grew up in Bunbury. I started my swimming off at Golden West Dolphins. I then moved to the Bunbury Swimming Club. I did fairly well in my swimming. I was a state captain for state teams for WA. I age group finalist. Around 18, I was forced to take an 18-month break from swimming due to an ACL injury that I sustained. And that's really when I got into the nitty-gritty of, you know, what could we do better to make sure that this kind of stuff didn't really happen to other athletes or other people, if that makes sense. And that kind of led me down the S&C pathway, okay? From then, I moved up to City to join Perth City Swimming Club under Matt McGee, who's in Germany now, coaching one of their high-performance squads over there. And I managed to get to top 6 in the country for the 200 breaststroke, okay? Not to toot my own horn, but that is a thing that happened, so yay me, okay? And then I was, again, forced into retirement due to injury after I managed to get myself back, okay? Some of the major things that, when I look back on my swimming career and I identify, is some things that I still see as issues that other athletes do today, if that makes sense. So not prioritising things like recovery, misinformation around nutrition, S&C, what is an effective strength program that's going to get you guys results the way that you need it, and how can we identify, you know, where do you need those issues? Where do you need those issues resolved? For those who haven't seen or don't know, we have a full testing thing that we do, okay, that is designed literally to find exactly where your strengths and weaknesses are, so we can then program our athletes to get the best results possible, okay? So it's a little bit around, you know, my swimming story, I guess. And Ingrid, if you'd like to press next for me. Cool. Now, what FSC has done as S&C provider and what I have done, okay? I've been the S&C provider for St Hilda's Swimming Club, for Chewett Hill, back when it was called Chewett Hill, now it's Scarborough, and Perth City and Claremont Swimming Club. And I've actually also been a swimming coach at Christchurch, City of Perth and Bunbury as well. So over the years, I've done a lot of stuff in terms of the S&C space, but I originally was always going to be a swimming coach on pool deck. I got pulled away from that a little bit later down in my journey, and I ended up here, okay? Enough about me. Next one, please. Some stats on what this place has produced over the last 6 years, okay? Over the last 6 years, we've had over 100 people national qualifiers. We've had 35 of them medal at a national event, and we've had 3 Olympians that have come through these training systems over the last 6 years as part of our programs, okay? As part of our gym program, okay? We're good? And what we realistically want to do, and moving forward is the focus that we are going to be looking at, is we want to give all swimmers access to elite services and opportunities, support, so they can realise their potential, okay? That's what this place is designed for. This is where this place is going in the future. We are all about making sure that we can provide as many swimmers as possible with the opportunities and access to the equipment and the resources so they can get the most out of their swimming. Not necessarily so they can make an Olympian, can become an Olympian, but so they can maximise their potential and have a positive swimming story. Okay? Still awake? Mint. Next. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of go over some misconceptions that have been definitely around a lot when I've been an S&C provider and stuff like that I've come across. See if you have any other ones that we can talk about today, and then go from there, okay? So, has anyone heard that strength training will make you heavy in the water? I got a nod. Was that a nod over there? No one? Sweet. That's awesome that no one thinks that anymore. Building muscle will slow you down. Has anyone heard that one before? Got a few nods. Yeah? It seems to pop up, okay? You need to do exercises that replicate swimming. Has anyone seen that or heard that? No? Yes? Maybe? A simple nod is okay if you don't want to yell out to the back, okay? The gym causes injuries. Has anyone ever had the gym being blamed for potential injuries and stuff like that you kind of knew didn't really originate in the gym, but they happen, okay? That's something that can happen. Obviously, injuries can happen in the gym, but if you're doing a good program that is safe and is designed well, there should be no reasons why that should be the case. And to be honest, injuries are such a complex thing as it is that pointing at one thing as the cause of the injury is really a very shallow way of looking at them, okay? All you need to do as terms of your strength and conditioning is doing body weight exercises. Don't go to the gym, don't lift weights, just do some wall squats, just do some squats on pool deck, do some push-ups, that kind of thing, okay? Yeah, you're obviously going to get something out of it, but is that really going to get you anywhere that you really want to be and get you as strong enough as you need to be, okay? Have you guys got any other ones that you've heard about the gym? Anything that you've heard about the gym? Coaches, you're welcome to jump in as well. Sweet. Look at me knowing my audience. What age? What age? What's too young? What's the youngest person in the room? What's your age? 13. I'd have you started. It's a really tricky question. The age thing comes up a lot. So there is the whole thing about, if you're young and you lift weights, it will stunt your growth and it would ruin your development and stuff like that is been so debunked now that it's nowhere near relevant, but it's still quite a good narrative that people like to use. There's actually a lot of research saying that the earlier you can get into it, the more you can prevent stuff happening during puberty and stuff like that. So it's a tricky question weighing up between, what is safe to have a bunch of 8-year-olds running around in the gym, or do they need that, if that makes sense? So risk versus reward is always something that we like to think about in here. We have an 8-year-old that trains here, okay? But that was a very long conversation with the parent, a very long interview with the kid to make sure, and there was very much a trial basis to make sure that they were going to fit into the place and do the right things, okay? Do I think that 8 years old across the board is a great time to start? It depends. It depends on, background, injury, where they're at with their development, stuff like that. So the age thing is quite tricky. I don't think there's any time where you cannot start, if that makes sense. Obviously, when you're 4, probably don't. My new child, because I've just had a child, everyone, if you didn't know, my child isn't going to start anything in terms of being in a gym for a while. I probably won't get her in doing that, but will she try and do some squats, some rolling, some crawling activities when she's a bit older than the normal crawling? Yeah, probably. So it just depends on what you could classify as an S&C program and how you want to apply it. Does that make sense? Was that too wishy-washy or?
No.
How old do you think?
Like 13.
13 is a good age?
Like 13. Just big, teen.
Yep.
They're in high school, they're mature.
Yep. There's a maturity thing to it, of course. That's the main thing. And it's very hard to run big gym sessions with an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old. Their needs are very different. Trying to make sure that they have what they need and what they need is the same thing becomes very tricky. So it's just a case of, what the environment's like, what's the qualifications of the person, does the person know what they're doing for that age group, and then building it from there, if that makes sense. Cool. All right, next. All right, the reality of some of these things, okay? So we just talked about a few things there. So strength training will make you heavier if you train to get heavier. Does that make sense to people? Now, if you follow a program that is designed to make you heavier and you eat accordingly to put on, a huge amount of mass, yes, it will make you heavier. Now, how many times are you guys swimming in the water? 6 to 8 times a week, 2-hour sessions most of the time. Hour sessions, rough kilometres. How many kilometres do you do? Yeah, how many do you do in a week at the moment, Ingrid? About 40k a week. That's a lot of cardio, guys. That's a lot of aerobic work and a lot of time moving, okay? It's very hard for you to get to a position where you're going to be very heavy if you're doing that many kilometres in the water. Does that make sense? Now, if you flipped that, because there's always 2 sides to everything, right? If you flipped that and you did maybe your ratio was 6 sessions in the gym and 3 sessions in the water, you probably would start getting a bit heavy. Wouldn't you agree? But you're not really training to be a swimmer at that stage, are you? You're more training to be a gym rat that has a good cardio base. Does that make sense? Cool, awesome. Muscle is how you produce more force and power. Having more of it increases the opportunity to go faster. So that's related to what we were talking about before, about muscles and stuff like that. So does everyone understand how muscle works? Yeah? No? Who doesn't? Don't be shy, man. I'm here to... Don't know? Or do you know? Or you got an idea? No idea? What do you think? Not to make you feel like you're putting on the spot, but you raise your hands, so there you go. Does stuff, right? Yeah. Muscles do stuff, yeah? So to make it really simple for you guys, yeah? Muscles get shorter and longer, okay? When a muscle gets shorter, it contracts. When a muscle gets longer, it releases, yeah? Okay? The way that affects you is muscles cross over joints, okay? When a muscle crosses over a joint and it gets shorter, what do you think is going to happen to my arm? Finn's got it. If that gets shorter there, so that's really long right now. If that gets shorter, the arm comes up. Does that make sense? Yeah? Make more sense? Kind of getting it? Now, this is where it gets good. The more muscle you have, yeah, and the more that your body is in tune with those muscles, okay, the faster and more power that muscle can make that joint move. Does that make sense? That is why if you're if you're going to increase your muscle mass, you are realistically going to give yourself a bigger opportunity to produce force rather than make yourself slower. Okay? Again, if it doesn't fit into your training as a swimmer, you're probably not going to start building muscle in a way that's not going to be very good for that. Does that make sense? But the more muscle mass you have, the more potential you have to produce force. Okay? The more potential you have to produce force, the more opportunity you have to produce power. Okay? The more opportunity you have to have power, the greater the transfer can be to the water. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? In a very basic this. And we'll go over it in a bit more detail later and how it can apply to your training. Okay? Any questions on those two so far? Cool beans. All right. There is nothing more specific than doing the sport. Okay? This ties into what I was saying before about making exercises in the gym or on land, trying to replicate swimming. Has anyone seen, there's a few that you can talk about. There's obviously the one where you've got the bands and you're pulling them down. Seen that? Okay? Now, that's not a bad exercise. Okay? But if you're doing it for the purpose of building muscle to get yourself faster in the water, you probably have better options, especially if you're trying to mimic it completely. Okay? The way the body works is it is specific transfer based on the speed, the intensity, and the movement that you do. Okay? Does that make sense? The body gets better based on the speed of the movement that you're trying to replicate, the amount of intensity you're putting behind it. Does that replicate what you do at max effort in the water? Okay? And then the direction and how the muscles activate during that sequence. Does that make sense? There is nothing more specific for you guys than being in the water. Okay? Nothing. Okay? I've tried it in the gym, trust me. I have timed rates of athletes in the water, and I did it for myself. I've timed my breaststroke rate and tried to mimic the rate of my kick to a squat and see how that transfers. Tends to never work out as well as you think it does. And then you just start thinking to yourself, I probably should just do more breaststroke kick. Make sense? Cool beans. Click next, please. Any questions on any of that? Nope. Weird. All right. Okay, this is about gym and training and how that may injure you, okay? So it's very much been shown that having some strength training can dramatically decrease your chance of injury when done correctly in a safe environment. As I said before, okay, the number one priority here at FSC is to make sure you stay in the water as long as possible, okay? That relates back to how we're talking about being specific before. Okay? There's nothing more specific than being in the water. Okay? So there is no point me putting you under certain stress in the gym, so therefore you can't optimally work in the water. Does that make sense? So your gym program should be designed in a way that facilitates you being in the water for longer. Okay? And most of the time, by you guys just getting some strength in some general areas, and some very key areas, like upper back, for example, you'll generally massively decrease your common injuries rather than present more, okay? This is another reason why I'm not a fan of doing specific exercises in the gym that would simulate a race or simulate a stroke. Does that make sense? So, for example, like trying to mimic a band pull down or a freestyle catch and pull with a band, okay? If doing that in the water is the best way to enhance that, doing more reps of that is probably going to increase your chance of injury of that. Does that make sense? Okay? You only have so many reps in each joint that you can do in a certain amount of time before you've recovered from that activity. Okay? I see everything as, what is the best use of your time in the gym? The best use of your time in the gym is probably making the muscles that are going to stabilize and support the action that you're going to need in the water, rather than trying to get more output out of that, okay? Because you're going to spend 40 kilometers doing that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? Is everyone getting a bit of an understanding of, a lot of the ways that we work here at FSC? Yeah? Just touched on it then. The number one thing that we want to do is make sure that you're in the water as much as you can, and we reduce the amount of injury that you have. Okay? That's why we're not very much doing hugely specific things in here. We're very much a gym that focuses on making sure that you're strong in key areas. Cool. All right. Bodyweight exercises are great, but you'll quickly hit a ceiling, okay? Does everyone know what I mean by a ceiling? Who doesn't? Cool, excellent. So when we talk about a ceiling, yeah, say that's a ceiling there, I can only go that high before I hit the ceiling, then I can't go any higher. Does that make sense? So when we talk about that in terms of, body weight exercises, your body is probably going to adapt to a body weight exercise quite quickly because you hang around in body weight a lot of the time. And therefore, once you get to that ceiling, there's not a lot more room to go. You'll still increase a little bit, yeah, but you need to put more stress on the body. Does that make sense? Cool. Anyone else? Did that not make sense to anybody? It's a pretty key concept. Cool. That concept is progressive overload. Okay, who knows what progressive overload is? Were you raising your hand then? Maybe. No one knows what it is? Coaches?
There's consistent overstressing of your muscular structure, so that you slowly progress in terms of breaking down the muscle fibers, rebuilding them, breaking down the muscle fibers, so that you don't end up hitting the ceiling.
Awesome. Yeah, pretty much. So progressive overload is generally just how we make sure that we're putting a little bit more stress on you each and every week to make sure that you continue to get better. Does that make sense?
Touching on this, maybe we'll touch on this question a bit later, but one of my questions.
Ooh, what a question. Okay, so for all the people that will be watching on YouTube later and won't be able to pick that up, the question was, how do we do gym in here to make sure that and how should that feel when they leave? Yeah, should there be soreness? Should you be leaving tired? Should you be feeling energized? Okay, now to make a wishy-washy answer, but then I'll get very specific towards the end of it, it very much depends, okay? It will depend on the conversation that I'm having with the coach in terms of what they're looking for in terms of their S&C component at that point in time. But generally, okay, we are all about making sure that they feel good in the water, okay? If someone leaves here and can't walk, they're going to be very crap at swimming later. If that makes sense? So I generally, and soreness will turn up every now and again, okay? Sometimes there'll be something in their life that made their threshold a little bit high and they weren't able to recover enough, okay? But generally we never, at FSC, we don't want people walking out of here and getting sore the next couple of days, okay? It's taking away from their work in the water, if that makes sense. If we're taking away from their work in the water, we're not really doing what we need to do. And that's probably a good misconception that we could have touched on before. You do not need to feel soreness to get gains out of the gym or to progress in the gym, okay? Soreness is not an indicator of improvement, okay? It generally will tell you when soreness is realistically an indicator of overdoing it a little bit, okay? Now, not to say that soreness is bad and you should never feel sore in your life, because there are some stages as athletes that you will feel sore, okay? But it shouldn't be the norm. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Hopefully I haven't upset any coaches or anything like that with those comments, but from an S&C standpoint, and I like to make, in this type of part of the season, yeah, when everyone's competing, people have probably done some races, stuff like that, my number one goal is for people to leave here feeling better than when they came in. okay? The gym should be energizing them, okay? People come in, they do their workout, everything is designed to make sure that we're targeting their nervous system and hitting their muscles in some way, okay? They normally leave here buzzing, okay? That's what we're aiming for. But that's a very individual conversation with athletes to make sure they understand that, okay? And designing a program that will facilitate that outcome, okay? Now, in the middle of winter where it's dark outside and no one wants to be in the water anyway, sometimes they leave tired because that is an opportunity for us to put some more work into them, okay? But we don't bank weeks of soreness. Generally, if someone gets sore, we generally pull it back. Make sense? Sound good? Answer the question quite well? Awesome. Cool beans. And that's where progressive overload and recovery are key, okay? Progressive overload only works if you're recovering from that overload, okay? If you do not recover from that overload, you can't actually get better if you don't recover from it, okay? Recovery is key. If you don't recover enough, you will not get better from what you just did, okay? Next button, please. Cool, so that takes us into a bit of our pillars of swimming performance, okay? Pillar number one, as I've probably mentioned a few times already, the swimming component is key, okay? And I like to make sure that I iterate this to everybody, okay? It doesn't matter what we are doing in the gym or outside of the pool if the work in the pool isn't going well, okay? That is always my number one indicator of how we are going in the gym, is if the pool work is getting better, okay? I didn't put that in just to make the coaches feel good about themselves, okay? All right, the pool work is the number one thing. If we're seeing a decrease in the pool work, we need to make adjustments, okay? Pillar number two, strength training with purpose, okay? I'm not a big fan of adding stuff into programs that I don't have a specific reason for. Does that make sense? Here we have a rule that any one of the coaches that are allowed to do programming has to follow, in terms of if I can walk up to them at any point of the day, any time, and go, hey, I saw Alec doing this. Why was he doing that? And they have to tell me why he was doing it, what rep scheme they chose and why they chose that rep scheme, what was the intensity requirements of that exercise, okay? And where would it go from there? Does that make sense? If they can't give me a good answer on that, that exercise is not worth them doing. If that makes sense to everybody. Everything that goes into a program should have a purpose, okay? And if it doesn't have a purpose other than, we just wanted to work their legs, it shouldn't be in there, okay? At the end of the day, we need to make sure that we are facilitating this. If we are not facilitating that, what are we doing in the gym apart from wasting their time where they could be working on the third pillar, that is optimize recovery to maximize results, okay? For example, if I put a load of exercises in there to make someone tired, okay, I've just sacrificed on pillar number 3 because they have done extra work where they could have been resting and recovering to get the most out of the stuff that we needed them to get better at, so we can get better at pillar number 1. Does that make sense to everybody? Anyone got a question on that? Excellent. What's the timeframes that we use? 48 to 72. Okay, so when we build a training program for everybody, we take in their training regime. A lot of them are uni students, their uni timetables, if they've got work, what their work schedules are, other sports, all of that stuff. So this is the way that we tell people, yeah? We do our heavy work at the start of the week, and we'll do our fast work at the end of the week. Now, I generally like a day or two in between. So if I have someone in on a Tuesday, they're coming in on a Friday or a Thursday or a Saturday. Does that make sense? I don't program in muscle groups. I program in, it's moving on to a different bit of a presentation, but I get what you're saying. 48 hours. Generally, the soreness period is 24 to 48 hours for recovery anyway. So if you're working no later than 48 hours. That's generally a good rule. But yeah, it's a tricky one without knowing what's going into the program, if that makes sense. I like to make sure that I have our priority stuff at the start of the week, so our number one priority work at the start of the week, and they're generally loaded up and heavy, and then there's secondary speed stuff midway through the week. 2 at the moment. In break periods, they may come in 3 times. I believe that more than 2 is probably too much based on 6+ training sessions a week, where 2 hours, and generally a lot of intensity behind them. Most of the year, yes. Yeah, most of the year. Yo. How long are the sessions? As long as they need to take to do the sessions. Sorry, it's a lot of fluffy answers, but that's the reality of them. So generally, I've got sessions that are half an hour. I've got athletes that take an hour and 15. The sessions are generally designed 45 to an hour. Okay? But if someone comes in tired, we cut it right down, and they may only be in here for 30 minutes. Does that make sense? Before competitions, post-competitions, they may only be doing 30-minute sessions because they're recovering from the competition or they're preparing for the competition. Does that make sense? It's rule of thumb, 45 to an hour. I try to make sure that no one goes past an hour. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you for those questions. They were good. All right, cool. So these are our 3 essential steps, okay? And I will probably get some volunteers in a second to kind of go over it in more of a practical detail, okay? But breaking it down, when we're designing programs and trying to figure out what people need, these are the 3 things that we always look for, okay? The first thing we need to do is make sure that they have adequate range of motion in the joint. Now, that may not be 360 degrees, but that was just the thing on Canva that I could find at the time, okay? So adequate range of motion. So for a shoulder, we need 180 degrees of range of motion, okay? If we can't get that, that's the priority. Does that make sense? Because again, we need to make sure that we are reducing the chances of injury so they can do as much work in the water as possible. Then we work on centralizing the joint, okay? Now, this is a concept called joint centration, okay? And it refers to having the joint placed in the optimal position to produce force, okay? Now, I know that was a lot of words. So, for example, if you've got your shoulder, it sits in like that, yeah? That would be quite snug in the joint, okay? That would be centrated. If it was out here, that would be not what's the opposite of centrated? Not centrated. There you go. Decentrated. There we go. Created a new word, okay? For example, if we can't get into this position, okay, and have the shoulder up, that would be back to what I was talking about before, about decentralizing the joint, okay? To centralize the joint in an overhead position would be like that, okay? If we are in this position and we pull down, we actually get the muscles in our back and our lats to activate and pull, okay? If we have our arm up like this, okay, and we just go like that, what happens? Shoulder dumps forwards, we lose strength, we end up dumping into pec and internal rotation. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So, because you're all looking tired, everyone stand up. I know, sorry mate, in the back. Now, I want you to just bring one arm up for me, try and get it in an overhead position, and then lift your hand up as high as you can. Up as high as you can. I'm sorry, I'm short. As high as you can, yeah? Feel how that's stretching through the side. Okay? Now, pull that down without bending your arm. Feel how now can you feel your back working? You feel some activation through here. Hold that, fingers down, elbow up, come down. Yeah? Feel different? Feel the same? Feel good? Cool. Congratulations, you've actually used your lat to pull down, okay? Now, this is something that I come across a lot. Everyone sit down for me. Thank you for that great bit of participation. Okay? This is something we see a lot when people try and do pull-ups. Okay? Has anyone seen a pull-up where they go like that? Okay? Seen it? Feel like you've been doing it? Yeah, cool. If your arms are up like this, yeah, or your shoulders are up, what do we talk about? We talk about how muscles work before. If a muscle is on, is it short or long? Short. If we're trying to get the back to do some work and produce power for us, if the shoulder is up, what is the lat? Long? That was the murmur that I heard, yeah, long. How's it going to do anything in a long position? It can't, okay? It has to be pulled back down into position. Does that make sense? So getting to length is good. Being able to get into length is good, okay? But you do have to be able to get yourself back into position to utilize the muscles properly, okay? Very important, okay? Ingrid, how many times have I told you about your pull-ups to get your shoulders down? Lots, okay? Now, that's a very good example of, exercises that are good, are very good, but people may not be ready for, okay? That is why we have these systems in place. So we're making sure that we're giving people the right exercises at the right times, okay? So we can optimize their progression all the way through and work on that progressively overloading them over time. Does that make sense? Progressive overload doesn't just refer to the amount of weight that you are moving. The exercise complexity and the amount of muscle actions that are being used is another one that you need to make sure that you're doing right. Okay? Cool beans? Sound good? And then that's the easy one. We develop force. Okay? We develop force. Once we have got adequate range of motion in the shoulder, for example, we have learned how to pull our shoulder down into position, then we load it. Okay? Sound good? And there is a lot of different ways that you can do that, but this is the framework that the coaches here use, and it's been very successful for us over time in terms of reducing injuries and identifying where injuries may be coming from. Okay? May be coming from. Okay? I do that because I can't actually diagnose, it's not my job. That's a physio's job. But we've seen a very big correlation in people that can't do that, can't get their shoulder into the right position, and watch their film of underwater and seeing them not being able to do it in the water either, and them having issues in their shoulders. Okay? Not everyone, okay, but a high percentage of people that we've seen with those issues. Any questions on that? Sounds good? You then can apply that to your hip, your knees, your foot, your ankles, everything, yeah? If you're trying to produce force in a direction, we want to make sure that we have the range of motion to be able to do it, and then we have centrated the joint. And then we put the force through it. Sound good? Cool beans, easy goes. Next one. So this is how we then, once we've got that sorted out and we've managed to start putting some force down, okay? This is the next stage, okay? So this is how we take you from what we did before, what was making sure that everything is safe for you to do, okay, to actually getting you in positions where it starts transferring to your ability in the water, okay? This is why this is second, because if you can't do the stuff we did before, the essentials, this doesn't matter, okay? Because you won't be doing it. Does that make sense? So this is where the fun stuff comes in, okay? So once we have got adequate range of motion, joint centration, we started developing force, yeah? That's our general strength. I kept the thing the same to make it less confusing, okay? Then we start general strength, okay? General strength exercises, okay, would be things like squats, deadlifts, bench press, rows, pull-ups, whatever, yeah? Any kind of gym exercise that you probably have either seen doing or done before. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? Then we move into things that are general specific. What sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, okay? because how can you be general and specific at the same time? Well, I'll tell you. What we do, we take the strength loading exercises, okay? And we do we have a couple of options here. As I said before, to make something specific, there were 3 things that we needed to make sure that we did. What were those 3 things? Does anyone remember?
Range of motion, centralising the joint, and then
Slightly different thing that you've just remembered, but yeah, we were talking about the speed of the movement, the intensity of the movement, and the muscle actions involved. Does that make sense? So that's how you make it specific, okay? Now again, we can't make it specific. There's no point us doing the exact same things in here, but there are things that we can do to help facilitate the adaptation into the water, okay? For example, if we did a squat, okay, and then we did a jump, okay, that would be becoming more specific. That's our general specific. It's not specific because we're not in the water doing it, but what we are now doing is replicating the speed and the intensity of pushing off a wall or jumping off a block. Does that make sense to you guys? Then the specific bit is you swimming, okay? Does that make sense? Any questions? No questions on that? Wow. Everyone understand how that kind of works out? Another example would be, okay, a pull-up or whatever variation of a vertical pull that you are able to do, med ball slam, then you'll be into freestyle. Okay? So we've done the force generation of the pull-up, then we are doing a med ball slam, okay? We're mimicking the speed and the intensity that would be required to do the stroke itself. Then we are making it specific in the water. Does that make sense? You take what categories that you can from the aspect of training that you can do, and then you let the swimming component take care of the rest. Sound good? Cool. Sweet. Cool beans. Next beat. All right, cool. Now, because you guys are all looking quite tired and thingy, I thought there would be a practical component towards the end here, okay, or whatever time we have left. Okay, so warm-ups are a thing that you guys, dryland warm-ups, who's been told to do a dryland warm-up before? Who's done it? Who actually does it? Wicked. Well, it's okay. It's okay. Hopefully we can help you out with this, okay? So the big thing about a dryland warm-up, what do you guys enjoy about do you guys enjoy your dryland warm-ups? No? That's probably why you're not doing it, right? So that would be something that we'd probably like to help you out with. How do we enjoy this? Do you find that they take a lot of time? Yes? No? Nah, not a lot. Yeah, a little bit. How long does your take? Depends on if you did it or not. Fair enough. 0 or 20. Cool. For us, I want the duration of our dryland exercises to take 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes if you're flapping around a lot. Okay? I like having very short, sharp, specific things done before they get in and doing it. And it's the same that we do. We do group warm-ups, dryland warm-up before we get people working in the gym. It's done as a team. And it takes us 5 minutes. There's one on the board there. I didn't write that one up because I'm supposed to not be at work, but that's okay. I'm trying to figure out what they're doing there. Cool, we'll go through that later. Okay? Any other things that you guys don't like about a warm-up or your dryland warm-up? Is it like you get there 5 minutes, like 2 minutes before your session anyway, so there's no real time? Hit me, coaches. Awesome, cool. Question to the floor, what do you guys think that you're trying to get out of a dryland warm-up? Prevent injury. Yeah, what else? What? Speak up. Less stiff. Yeah? Are you reading off the board?
Actually, no, I just remembered some stuff.
Oh, cool. What did you say? Increased blood flow?
Yeah, that's not like.
Yep, cool. Overall, what are you trying to do?
On the end there, priming yourself for performance.
Yeah, you're trying to optimize the training session you're about to have. Yeah? The purpose of a dry land warm-up is to optimize what you are about to do in the water. Okay? Like I said at the very start, a lot of what we do here is about optimizing what happens in the water. Okay? Dry land warm-ups are a really good way of optimizing what is going to happen in the water. Okay? And it doesn't need to be overly complicated. Okay? What are some exercises that you guys do as your dry land preparation? Anyone? If I got a band out, would you do a few of these? A few of those? Maybe some of those? Some of those? Yeah? But yeah, to get back to the warm-up thing, okay? We're trying to optimize the session we're about to do. So for example, these can be general, they can be specific. It really depends on your knowledge and how you can apply things, okay? But at the end of the day, everyone turns up with some kind of sore point or stiffness somewhere, yeah? Okay? Sound about right? Some people will have, hip flexors that are tight. Some people will have their upper backs tight. You can't lift your arm past that position. That's probably something you need to look at. But we're trying to optimize the amount of what we're going to do in the water, okay? Now, how do we do that? So, to go back to this presentation that I did, address areas of concern. That's your foam rolling, your massage guns, spiky ball stuff. Does anyone do any of that stuff? Anyone find any benefit out of it? Yeah? Cool. Awesome. If you find the big thing is about this, yeah, because I don't know how exposed to the interwebs you guys are, but people love to make controversy out of massage, spiky balls, massage guns, all those things at the moment, ice baths, all those recovery aids, and say, ew, do they actually work? If you feel like you're getting a benefit out of it, don't listen to them, because your body will be getting something out of it. Does that make sense? Psychologically, you'll get something out of it. Okay? So just remember that when someone tells you that foam rolling is useless. Is it? I don't know. Okay? That's where you'd do that, and you'd probably focus on key areas, right? So what would be a key area for a swimmer? Shoulders. Yeah, shoulders. Okay? Hip flexors. Where else? Shoulders and hip flexors and rotation are the three things that I tell coaches to make sure they're getting sorted out. Okay? Shoulder, you need to have thoracic extension. Okay? Then you need to have scap mobility, and then you need to have range in the joint. Okay? You can do that in a number of ways. Wonder where all my equipment is. This is what happens when you go away for a couple of weeks. That will work. Anyone seen one of these? Or has got two tennis balls that they've duct taped together, or have got, there they are, the red ones that are down in the basket down the end and have been moved since I was last here. Seen one of these before? These are really useful, okay, in getting that thoracic extension. In that up. If you feel sore in between your shoulder blades, or you got knots in between your shoulder blades, this would be my first point of call for anyone. Okay? I like these. You can have that for a second. Light, come here, come to the front again. Come on. Chip chop. Megan. It was Megan, yeah? Do you like being called Meg or Megan?
Megan.
Interesting. Cool beans. Sit on your butt. Give yourself a hug. The giving yourself a hug aspect is really important. What I'll get you to do is scoot over here a little bit more. Give yourself a hug. Cool. Now, what we're going to do... Oh, how's that spot there? Feel that? Yeah. Ooh, icky. All right, give yourself a hug. Now, giving yourself a hug isn't because it's going to be uncomfortable. You need to get the shoulder blades out of the way. Okay? Give yourself a hug. So if you're like this, see how my shoulder blades are together? I do that, they get out the way. Yeah? Important. Otherwise, you're just going to be putting a lot of pressure on your scaps. It's going to hurt a lot, okay? There you go. Generally find a spot. Be about there. Okay, I'm going to get you to roll backwards, okay? Gentle, gentle, gentle. Just there. Lift your arms up. No. You got to hug yourself, remember that? Arms up like that. Okay, deep breath in. Do you not know how to breathe?
I am.
Deep breath in. So breathe in through your nose, expand everything. That's a deep breath in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Cool. Then bring your head back to the floor. How's that feeling?
Good.
Yeah? Sore? Okay.
Okay.
You're struggling to talk to me, so it must be doing something. Okay, you just keep breathing there for me, okay? Deep breath in your nose. Oh my God. Do you not know how to breathe? 5 seconds in your nose. Okay? 7 seconds out your mouth. Can you count? It's good to see the schools in Mandurah haven't improved. You just keep breathing. Now, what she is doing right there, yeah, okay, we have put pressure on the point, okay, and now we are creating an environment where your body's going to relax into the position, okay? If she knew how to breathe, this would be a lot more productive, and we probably would have got there by now. Breathing is one of your best tools. When I'm saying do deep breaths, I'm talking about 5 seconds in through your nose, holding it, and then see how when you breathe in, you expand everywhere and you don't just go like that? And then when I breathe out, everything kind of deflates, okay? That's what you've got to kind of aim for. What that does, increases the pressure, builds everything out, presses against the point of contact, okay? Holds it, your body goes, this is the new norm, goes, oh, this sucks, let's hold on to this. And then by exhaling and doing it for a long period of time, you relax. When your body relaxes, your muscles relax, your body then goes, ooh, this point that I have in my back is now not so bad. Okay? How are you going?
I'm still breathing.
Good. Just tick that box. You just keep doing that, okay? All right, the next thing that we'd look at, yeah? So that's an example of, finding a spot and fixing it or doing something to get rid of it for that day, okay? Does that make sense? Now, that's probably not going to fix it forever. Okay? But in the essence of optimizing what we're about to do, if we can make that go away for the 2 hours that we are going to train, yeah, and she can then get her arm into that position, we have just massively reduced the amount of time that she's probably going to be dumping forwards or could be dumping forwards. Does that make sense? Sweet, cool beans. Increased blood flow. This is just general movements designed to make you warm up, get your blood pumping so you feel better. Okay? Don't make it overly complicated. Don't turn it into a conditioning session. It can be stuff like doing a walkout. It can be crawling. I do crawling with a lot of guys, like crawling backwards and forwards, side to side, anything like that, yeah? Try and make it less boring as possible. Skipping for 20 minutes probably is just going to really wear out your Achilles. Not that skipping's bad, but I used to find skipping really boring when I was swimming. Stimulate key areas, okay? If you would like to jump up now. Good job. And stay here, go back to all fours. So we have just worked on that upper back area, yeah? Okay, have you done a plank push-up before? So no? Okay, jump out of the way, I'll show you. All right, plank push-up, it's like a cat-cow, but it's a bit harder, okay? So you'll be here, and you'll pull yourself down, and push yourself away, okay? We are covering the areas that we needed to cover to help this, hopefully, to help that out. So jump back down. Push-up position. Cool. Bring your hands under you a little bit more. Yep, cool. Now push your chest forwards. Squeeze your shoulder blades. Go on, more. And then push them away as far as you can. Go, go, go. And back in. Go. Go, go, go. More, 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 more. Good. Back up. Now, things we are looking for with this one, okay? See how the shoulders aren't coming up to her ears. Good. Yeah? What did we talk about centration before? We want to get the joint from here, not centrated, centrated. Keep going. Push away. Go again. How many reps have you done? About 20. Sweet. Push away. Rest. Cool. Feel okay?
Yeah.
Feel a bit weird?
Yeah.
Yeah? Feel like that is doing something for the first time in a long time, or? Yeah? Cool beans, well done. There you go, you've learnt something. What? Nah, I'll probably need you later. Okay, so stimulating key areas, okay? That can be done for your knees, your hips, your ankles, shoulders, backs, okay? Everything, okay? Then we need to prime you for performance, okay? This is mainly about getting you ready up here to jump in and start kicking some butt, okay? Does that make sense? I always do this in the form of a game. So fun fact for everyone, we will play a game later. I don't know what game we're going to play with bloody 200 of you, but I'm sure I can figure something out. Okay? Sound good? Excellent. Any questions on that? We will go through a warm-up late at the end of this when I've done the rest of the presentation, okay? We'll come back to that. Okay? Sound good? All good. Make a bit more sense about what we're kind of trying to do here. Excellent. Press next. That's it. That's all the listening done. Okay? Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but I hope that you all managed to fill in that waiver beforehand, or your parents did at least, okay? From that waiver is where I will be emailing you. The email addresses that came through that was where the emails for the recording and the slides and everything will go through. And I'm also be giving you guys, because you're cool and you're from the country and I have a special place for country kids, you're going to get the recovery manual, our goal setting booklet and our recipe book that we have. That all gets sent out to you as well, okay? Just for being nice people, okay? You'll also be jumped on an email list. If your parents don't want to be on an email list, tell them to tell me. Otherwise, they miss out on cool stuff. Okay? Sound good? That's pretty much it, guys. Click next. Now, before we run off into the wilderness and I turn the lights back on and get stuff out the way, okay? Thanks for listening. If you want to contact me about anything or talk to me about anything, email is ryan@formidablestrength.com.au. Social media is Swimming Strong or Formidable Strength and Conditioning. We have a YouTube channel. Feel free to have a look at that if you like YouTube. And that's pretty much it. If you liked what you did here, you can take a photo. Everyone's got phones on them nowadays. Take a photo, put it on social media, do whatever you like, okay? Sound good? Who wants to get up and move? This one, let's go. All right, cool beans. Guys, just grab a drink. Let's turn that off and let's get to work.